Hey guys, my name is Elliot from StudioME, and today I'm going to be teaching a beginner's guide to my favorite editing software, Adobe Premiere. This is the first of a three-part series, which is going to range from terminology to editing strategies to finishing touches and exporting. And as an example, I'm actually going to be editing together the intro that you saw just a second ago. Anyway, being that this is part one, the first thing that must be tackled is the interface of Premiere. Yeah, there's boring terminology and techniques that we have to learn, but it'll all be worth it, I promise. And by the end of the video, you will know how to import footage and correctly create a video sequence. First, let's take a look at the timeline. It's important to keep in mind, first, that Premiere is a non-linear editing software, which is really just a fancy way of saying that you'll never actually be editing or modifying your original files. Next to know is that time moves left to right on your timeline, and this is represented in hour, minute, second, and frame markers, which means that this last number is only going to go as high as the frame rate that you select. On your timeline, you build sequences using audio, video, graphics, and adjustment layers. And you could also dynamically link all of these files with Audition, Illustrator, and most importantly, After Effects, which is very useful. Now let's move to the project panel. This is where you'll find your files, adjustment layers, titles, and basically anything that you need for your project. You basically take stuff from here and place them into your timeline. The next tab over is called the Media Browser. This is the best place that you can go to import your footage. On the top left is the source window, which allows you to view and trim files before placing them into the sequence. And once you find the parts of your clip that you like, you can set in and out points using the shortcuts I and O. Your source window also contains your effect controls and audio settings. On the top right is your preview window. This is where you see the end result of your editing and effects. This is basically your final product. And that's it. That's the basic interface of Premiere. Now it's time to import your footage and create a sequence. So to import, all you have to do is go to File and Import, and then select the footage that you want to import in. A better way to do this is actually by clicking Command-I, which I highly recommend you get into the habit of doing. In fact, I can't stress enough how important it is to memorize all these keyboard shortcuts like Command-I. It'll end up making your workflow 10 times faster in the end if you're able to memorize these things. That'll come naturally though as you edit more often. The alternative way, and much easier way I think, is just to navigate to the media browser. Once you've imported your footage, you can go back to your project panel and color code your footage as well as organize them into bins. After you've imported your footage, it's time to create your first sequence. There are two ways to create a sequence. One where you drag the imported footage into the timeline where it automatically sets the timeline's settings to whatever your clip settings were. Or you can go to File, New, and Sequence where you can in detail select exactly what kind of sequence you want. And of course, the much faster option is to just click Command-N, which will take you to the same thing. Going through this could easily take up an entire second video. So right now I'm just gonna pick DSLR at 1080p and at 23.976 frames per second. So we've gotten to know our interface, learned how to import and organize footage, and correctly created our first sequence. And that's it for part one. Hopefully you're at least a little bit more comfortable with Premiere's layout and workflow. In the next video, we're actually going to be beginning the editing process of our intro, as well as adding effects, color correction, color grading, transitions, the works. So stay tuned.